up and that we are live. Very good. Okay, looks like we're in, and I'm going to go ahead and just let them know in Telegram that we are live. And I will go ahead and hit the recording and we'll fire this up. So let's do it. 2 seconds here. Let me just pull up. What's up, everybody in D-Live world and in YouTube? I will try to go to YouTube as well. If you guys have questions for our esteemed guests, I will try to get to them in YouTube as well. Sorry, it's hard to jump between platforms, but I will do better today. I was getting chastised last week for not paying attention to YouTube people, even though we prefer if you all just went to D-Live. Okay, I'm going to hit record.
You better do better.
I better do better. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Alfacast. I'm Mike Winter, and I'm here as always with Dr. Bear Paul Lando, coming to you live from the Smith River up here in the beautiful state of Jefferson. We got a nice spell of sun. It felt like spring was tickling in. Now it looks like snow. The grand solar minimum will tease us when it can, but my family's actually skiing today as we speak, Bear, up on Mount Ashland. So I've got the house to myself. So we'll have a nice quiet cast. And today we have two amazing guests. I'm really excited for this broadcast because as we started 2021, Bear, we talked about having folks on that were really out there in the world and taking what we talk about to the streets. And these two gentlemen today, not only do they go super deep with everything they discuss and have the knowledge and the background to back up what they're doing out in the streets, but they're actually out there doing it. And that is really what we're all about for 2021 is taking mind into action. And so this is going to be a wonderful discussion. A couple points of business real quick. We will be unfortunately virtually, but we will be at Acapulco. Speaking of taking action, next week, Jeff Berwick's amazing week-long summit in Acapulco. They are doing more of a virtual event this year, even though they do have 200 VIPs live at the event, and they will have speakers there in person as well. Bear, you will be talking on the Health and Wellness Day, and that will be exciting. So if you guys still want to get tickets for that, please join us. We will have a virtual booth there, so you can come and talk to us. You'll have a little avatar walking around in a virtual environment. I know it's easy to roll our eyes at this stuff. We know that oftentimes the virtual stuff is scary because of the things that the forces that are trying to co-opt us into that environment. That's their plans. But however, we are virtually coming to you right now. We are coming from a heart-centered place, and that's really what Jeff and those guys are doing. They're just using this technology to keep people connected right now until it's easier to meet in person. So you can join us. Come to our virtual booth. We will be actually there, though, there coming, so you can come talk to us virtually. We'll have offers there for products and some new content, and that'll be a really fun week of networking. And then 2 weeks from there, from then we have the Reunion Summit, which I've poured a lot of my heart, blood, and soul into, and that was actually shot in person in Joshua Tree. And today our guests are featured in that. Steven and Eril will be there on an amazing panel that Josh Del Sol is putting on about notices of liability and natural law and bringing back our power, which we will discuss today as well. So that is reunionsummit.com/watch to see the trailer and to start getting involved, because that is a community-focused event as well. We do have a Telegram group for that already and a Discord as well, reunionsummit.com/Discord. Jump into there. And then if more about us, if you are new to Alfa Vedic, you can go to alfavedic.com and join our mailing list. That's the best way to stay up to date on everything we're up to up here on the farm and in the co-op. Okay, enough of that. Let's get to our special guest today. Today, truth, freedom, Love is the Trinity. The only authority is natural law, for nothing escapes the law. Freedom fighters and spiritual samurais, Steven Whybrow and Errol join Alfacast for a timely and lively roundtable today. We will discuss everything from occulted knowledge, the matrix control system, natural law principles, freedom for humanity, notice of liability, and the practice of Gnosis as the ultimate knowledge of initiation. As conscious activists, Steven and Errol have been central to big happenings in Austrian events as of late. In Steven's own words, quote, "We cannot even put into words what is happening here in Austria. We had 100,000 plus people in the streets taking over the city of Vienna for real. Police totally stopped. Matrix control system going crazy. Police marching with the people. Amazing. We are literally in the middle of getting rid of the entire Mafia system of control in Austria." Errol and Steven co-founded the Gnostic Takeover with "You want to lock us down? We take you down," quote unquote, being the central motto. The Gnostic Takeover is proactively confronting the 5G rollout through the sending of notice of liability to agents of the system that are knowingly or unknowingly causing harm to all sentient beings on the planet, while developing an international version of a notice of liability based on natural law principles on which the universe is founded upon. So lovely to have you gentlemen here today. Dr. Bear Lando, how are you today?
Doing wonderful, Michael. Spring is springing, and of course, we just went through our first fall spring, so we can expect a few more of those. But we're getting a lot of work done out there. We're installing a new huge pond so we can start our aquatic cultivation, and just a lot of fun things happening here. I equally share your enthusiasm for today's broadcast because it's very near and dear to my heart. And by the way, all this virtual stuff, I like to think of it as the virtual within the virtual. And we talk a lot about that on our broadcast. But anyway, you guys, thanks so much for being here. And as we're talking just before the broadcast, I really commend your efforts. And, to see you guys, the next generation out there actually making things happen. I have a long timeline in this business. And, started in the 70s, just going down all the rabbit holes. And then in the 80s, we actually started perfecting processes by sticking our necks out in courts and with public officials, doing things like the early versions of the Notice of Liabilities, affidavits, changing our status, and just learning how things worked. I had regular visits from different agencies. So that became a way of life for me. Some of my friends in the business are no longer alive because they literally gave their life for the cause. They were disappeared. Some of them that I know, dear friends, are in jail several decades later. And so, we paid a heavy price. And now with this virtual presence we have, what's really heartening for me is that we're connecting with like-minded people, kindred spirits, really, across the entire planet. And you guys have run a parallel course, and what your efforts are bringing to fruition here are just fantastic. So we all want to hear about what you're doing in your own words. And, it's gentlemen, people like yourself, it's what gives me hope, because I've been gaslighted and marginalized and everything else for many years because of the things I was involved with. Even though everything has come true, what we were trying to alert people to, we never thought it would get as far as it is now. But I personally believe that it needed to get to this point so that everything could be exposed. And so the next platoon of folks, people like yourselves, could let's just seal the deal, and get on with what was really intended for this planet in the first place, and not a control grid that we all think there's no option. So thanks for being here. I'm immensely happy to have you here. And let's hear the story from your own mouths here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. And I'd say I start first because I think we can't talk in parallel. That would only confuse people. So,
Sure.
So yeah, my background is that I come from a normal family in Austria. We're working class family, and my mom's a teacher, and my dad was working in different trades. He's an Englishman and moved over to Austria when he was 31. And yeah, I grew up with both languages, so I have both worlds within me. And yeah, I sort of my initial awakening was in when I was 19, and I watched the Zeitgeist movie, which was a paradigm buster, you know, which although I do question it now, the sort of system that they proposed, which can also be linked to a smart city implementation. But still, there was a lot of very good information to like about it. And that really kickstarted a lot of people. And right from the beginning, I was like, hang on a minute, you know, I mean, this is going on in the world. We've got this artificial money system and people in control of it. And you start to feel that there is no way out of this. It's like, what am I doing here now? I'm on this planet and I've been turned into a slave to earn money and earn a living, and this sort of paradigm that our parents and our parents' parents have been in. It was the question, like, how do I get out of it, you know? And that is what triggers and starts the awakening process. And with me, I had to learn patience along that journey, because I'm a very impatient guy, and I always have to keep that in check. There's a lot of fire coming from me, being Aries. And yeah, and like a child, I was basically looking for an answer to a question. How can I take them down? What are these silly people? Who do they think they are? You know, asking questions again like a child is like, who do you think you are? You can lock me in this money debt-based system and treat me like a slave, and I have to obey to all the orders that you make up. So my journey was to, and that crystallized like in 2014. I got involved with Mark Passio's work for the first time, who's a great man who has shared his knowledge to the world, and has had a massive impact on my life and in the lives of many. And I started to look into law and how does law operate. And that's sort of like reaching a crescendo right now in my life, by applying that knowledge. And it took me long years of study to be able to effectively apply the knowledge that I've gathered over the last 11 years. And now it's coming to fruition. I can see actual results, which is beautiful to have, because for a long time, there were no results. There were only questions, 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 researching all different sorts of rabbit holes, and then coming to the conclusion, hang on a minute, those are rabbi holes, and they want to keep me there. Just always looking around and this and that and all different sorts. It's the information overload, as I call it. So the last 2 years, I started to crystallize. I became more of what I would term an information alchemist, which is to reduce the information and to just see what do they don't want me to know and focus on that Achilles heel, and really really apply that, and then share that wisdom through experience with the world. So that's sort of like a short background to me, and I'd like to give it over to Errol.
Hello, my name's Errol, and my background basically is, well, I was born in London, UK, to Turkish parents, and most of my time I lived in London. Lived in Turkey for 10 years when I was a teenager, but for the majority of the proportion of my life, I lived in London. And now I'm here in Austria ever since this false flag has been taking place. And I was naturally brought here, to be honest with you, by the source, by the higher source. I've been involved in a lot of shamanism, Peruvian shamanism, and I have a lot of memory from the previous lifetimes that I've lived, ancestral memory. And this isn't the first time that I've been involved in something like this. I've done this quite a few times, to be honest with you. I'd like to identify myself as a protector and a preserver of creations. So that's the reason why I'm here now.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I love having watched a lot of your content, you guys, and just loving your interviews and your message. And I want to get into the journey and the story, because I think that's important, right? The narrative of how you got to where you are. And really, Errol, I love how you ground a lot of this into Mother Nature, into the planet, into that heritage that we get from a lot of indigenous cultures, right? That historically has been put into the more esoteric in the West and hidden and occulted. And Mark Passio is brilliant at uncovering and showing that. But I would love to get a little background, Errol, into how you developed into where you are now, and maybe give a little context to how this plays into what you and Steven are doing there in Austria, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well, to explain it simply, everything happens in accordance to the natural order, which is the order of the source of all creation. And for those who are connected to the source directly, have direct access to the plans of the source. So when you surrender to the will of the source, what happens is the source works through you, it operates through you, and it takes you to places where you need to be at the right time. So that's how I ended up in Austria and met Steve and the rest of the crew, and we're doing what we're doing now. To keep it short and simple, if that makes sense, you know.
Yeah, and it's also something that I drew in because I already in 2019 I sent a notice of liability because of the genocidal and ecocidal rollout of 5G to all the political representatives without a template. I didn't have a template. I just thought, no, I'm not having this. All right, let's do this. And again, the year after that, with this whole scam that's going on, I was getting ready to pull the trigger again. And this time they were already aware of me, and I needed to learn especially the law of protection, or how protection works, with the protection of the spiritual realm and the energetics of the land. That was the main component that is absolutely fundamentally important to be successful with a notice of liability approach. And therefore I drew Errol in order for that to be successful, because I don't know what I would be now if it weren't for Errol. It was absolutely crucial that I met this guy, and it's just an absolutely beautiful team effort. I've never experienced anything like it before, and it's a beautiful way of learning how the natives used to mentor and how teaching used to happen. And it has absolutely nothing to do with what we see in schools, because I studied mathematics and history at the University of Vienna, for example, to become a teacher, but that I knew exactly that I wasn't here to further continue that disgusting paradigm that is sucking the life force out of our young children. And therefore it was just a beautiful synergy that happened when I got to know Errol, and everything has just flourished from that ever since September of last year.
Yeah, and of course, what we talk about a lot is just the principle of resonance. And you two gentlemen know that you didn't connect up with each other just serendipitously. It was a matter of resonance. It brought you together. It's a matter of resonance. It's bringing us together, here across the pond, so to speak. And that's what's happening across the whole world. And, you mentioned the money system, and, way long ago in our travels and our efforts, we were trying to alert people as far as what the money system really was. But, rather than just wringing our hands about, the fact that it has successfully enslaved the whole planet, the IMF and the Federal Reserve and all that sort of thing, I think we can really look at it and learn from it, because the people, no matter how sinister they are, it doesn't even matter at this point, that developed those monetary systems understood that we were, people are the only currency, and that people are the only ones capable of generating creative life force, through our thought processes, through our emotions and so forth. All they did is figured out how to create a device to make them a middleman, so that they, cipher all, not cipher, but siphon all of our energy in between. So I like to look at these folks, because anybody that gets to that point of development that they have on this planet now, obviously they knew what they were doing. They understand how things work. So I like to learn from people that have had success, no matter how dark their success was. And, the money system is their Achilles heel. And, a lot of what we're doing on our end is decentralizing a lot of our processes so that we take it back. So can you relate to us how, your movement and your whole notice of liability process and everything is figuring into that equation?
Yes, absolutely. It took me 11 years to get to the point where I'm at now. So when you study something for 11 years, I think you get somewhere. And at one point, it just switched when I started to realize that you needed to bring the brain into holistic thought processes and aligning thoughts, emotions, and actions with your intent. And that's sort of like the holistics of it. So you look at, there's so many rabbit holes to get down, and you'll never end the information that you gather. Like, for example, here I've got the ARC from Mark Passia, which is a whole terabyte full of information. And I like looked at it only once, probably, because I don't have time. I don't have time to do that right now because I'm in action mode. But there are so many things. But the thing is that you start to crystallize and alchemize the information. What is really important? Why is money called currency? And what does it have to do with this pyramid, for example? And people listening are probably like, what does he mean? What's going on with him? What does a pyramid have to do with currency and with money? But it's those sort of connections, which is also the workings of the right hemisphere of the brain, which they try to cut us off from, because they don't want us to see through the mechanics of their system. You see, that's where the real treasure lies. When you see how the mechanics of where one fits into the other, and it's a dynamic system, and you can see where it all fits together, that's what they're really afraid of. Because then you're not holding, I wrote this today also, because I wrote a notice of peace to the Austrian interior minister today. And I basically come from the point of view that I know the system that we're in. So I'm offering you to come along with me because I understand the mechanics. I'm not holding you liable as a human being because I understand the mechanics, and I understand that we need to find a balance here and not take each other down, you see? So the focus is not on individuals in certain government institutions or corporations, but on the mechanics of it. Because the real perpetrators of this takeover bid of planet Earth, which goes into another non-human domain from my research, into another dimension, those are the ones that have to leave this space because of their psychopathy, you see? And it's that holistic thought and of connecting the dots, which I learned from the great man, David Icke, who also want to credit here, who's done a phenomenal job also. And it's that dot connecting and fitting the puzzle pieces together. And that's the true learning of humanity also, that we share the puzzle piece that we have. Therefore, I don't charge for the material that I produce, because I'm directly in trust with the source of life, that which creates all life force energy. I trust, and therefore the trust corporation that was set up in this system, which is a mirror copy of that trust that is lacking in the heart, because this criminal system that they enslave us in lacks that heart trust. Therefore, they have to set up a trust fund for you. And yeah, it's dissecting that and shining lights on that. And as long as the roots of wickedness is hidden, it is strong. But when it is observed, analyzed, and then revealed, it eventually perishes. That's the sort of Gnostic perspective where we're coming from, because that's in our interest is to bring forth the most crucial information of bringing back the ancient ways and the full honor and respect towards the natives of this planet, where we need to go and learn from them, learn about our true history and about the natural order. That's what I think we are really all about.
Yeah. Basically, our role, well, my role for sure anyway, is to serve as a capstone to sit there between the human and archon, the human affairs with the archons, and serve as a protection to stop further archontic infiltration into humanity. Basically, that's what my job is.
Fantastic. And, I think it's important that we all realize, too, that we're all natives. We're all here on the planet, but none of us have to earn a living. And all of us have indigenous roots. And we don't really have to romanticize any particular culture on the planet, because every culture in its indigenous state was a keeper, a memory banks of a little piece of the puzzle. So I think it's a matter of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but going back to those roots and putting it, all back together. Steven, I liked what you said about, I don't know if I'm interpreting it right, but it was more about forgiveness. In past years when we were testing the system, I'll speak very candidly. I had a lot of anger issues with certain people, especially if they're throwing you in jail and everything and trying to ruin your life. But in the money system itself, it's designed to have periodic jubilees where all debts are forgiven. And and I think we're even though that's not exercised, presently by the so-called powers that be, I believe that is going to happen. But I think what has to happen also on our side is to have a jubilee as far as, forgiving those individuals that have been participating in enslaving other people, harming other people. That doesn't mean that we have to be passive or tolerate further actions, because they don't really need our angst in the first place. Because if they aren't ready to move on like the rest of us, then they're going to take themselves out anyway. So it really goes back to that place within the heart, which is the only place that can transmute those lower emotions, that don't want to forgive. Because as long as we don't forgive, we're living in the past, and that's exactly where these controllers want us to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the great Yeshua, that was like one of his biggest, points, right? Is to love thy neighbor and love your enemy, and transcending the negative, deeper, more dense emotions is obviously what they feed off of, the archons, if you will. For those that don't have a background in the Gnostic tradition, Errol, what in your best definition is an archon?
Archon is Well, there's obviously creation and life. You know, this isn't the only creation. And creation comes from the primary source. And basically, the archons are the dark side of this force, which rather than create, they hate creation and they hate life and the living. So they constantly seek to destroy life anywhere and everywhere. So what they do is just constantly colonize realms and destroy them one after the other. However, these archons are just dark. They're the dark side. They're our opposites, because when source energy comes into creation, it's created in twos. There's a good side, a light side, and there's a dark side, and they're constantly at war with each other. So our job is to integrate these archontic beings into our own being and take responsibility and take them back and bring them back to our light, which is what's happening now. That's what's happening now. They're running out of space, living space, because we're coming into they think they are coming into our home to take over, but what's actually happening is we're going into their home to take them over, to take them back and bring them back to ourselves.
It's almost like you could also look at it from a Jungian archetype perspective too, right? Where it's, and I think often of was that the Empire Strikes Back, where Luke Skywalker is going through his training with Yoda, and he's in the cave right there, and he turns around and he sees Darth Vader, and he cuts him down, and he sees that it's actually him, right? And so I do like that perspective too, because the one thing that I think we sometimes like to do is externalize dark forces as outside of us, but often, you know, those forces are within us too. And as Bear said, that ability to forgive and go to the heart is so empowering, because then we can transcend, or we can transmute those negative entities, which are part of us too, in essence, as consciousness is all pervasive. So I wonder, Austin, sometimes if the Gnostics integrated that kind of conceptually, or if it was just all externalized as these kind of outside forces, because it is interesting, Errol, how you say it's up to us to kind of bring them in and sort of swallow them up with our light, if you will. I don't know if I'm making sense here at all.
They used to, yes, they used to constantly do it, but obviously the job's not completed yet, because just when they were reaching a point where they were going to succeed, the Gnostics have always been infiltrated and deceived. So they've always been slaughtered throughout history.
Yeah, Bear.
So would we think of the archons as energetic archetypes, as Michael says, or are they interdimensional entities? How would you think of them?
They're interdimensional beings.
Mm-hmm.
They're actual beings that exist, just not in this plane.
Mm-hmm.
They exist in the astral realm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we're vulnerable when we are sleeping at night in our dream state. We're exposed to them. So if we're not conscious in our dreams, they could reach us in our dreams, and they can implant us and do various things to us. So it's important to be conscious when you're dreaming at night, when you're sleeping.
And what I want to add here is that, because I talk a lot about natural law, Errol talks a lot about natural order, and we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
There's different layers of truth. Okay, that's important to emphasize. So in the highest realm, we're talking about dance of forces. Okay, light and dark. But that doesn't mean that I only have to love my enemy. No, because you have to protect love also. That's showing real love. The hijack of that and those systems of control that are based on mind control have been deeply embedded and infiltrated into schools of spirituality like nothing else. What I call the new age hijack.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's that really needs to be put into proper focus and put right. I see this as a big responsibility that I personally have, and I see it with Errol also. True rooted spirituality of the sky as limitless connection with the source and rooted in the earth, and bring it right back there. Because I'm not loving my enemy when I'm out there on the streets. I'm diplomat first. I also call myself the diplomat of the earth, because I don't have to have a certificate for that, because there's no stamp for it, okay? I'm just acting according to that, because like Errol, I see myself as a protector of the earth. And everything that infringes upon my freedom or the freedom of humanity, I'm going to hold you accountable. And first diplomacy, but when it comes down to it, I will defend myself. And that is the masculine principle. So I won't love you there. I'll love you in the form of my self-defense
See,
mechanisms.
we can talk about natural order and love and how they're one and the same thing. Natural order, first of all, to be able to create anything, to be a creator, okay? The foundation is responsibility, because when you create, when you do something in natural order, for every action you take, there's an effect, there's a cause, there's an outcome. So what kind of outcome is it that you're wishing to achieve when you take an action? This is the foundation of natural order, okay? And the foundation of all of this is love, because only love wants to create. Evil wants to destroy. Love, what is love if it's not able to protect and preserve itself to still continue being? So when it's under threat, obviously it's going to defend itself, isn't it? That's an act of love. It's like when you observe the lion. The lion is the most peaceful creature. Believe me, all it wants is peace and harmony, and to take care of its own family and its pride. That's why it's territorial. So it spends most of its life taking care of its family. But when it is under threat, its peace and harmony is under threat, it will tear everything up, and then it will go back to its peace. That's love.
Yeah, I would say that's like the
Yeah,
highest
and-
form of love. I'm sorry, Bear. I'm just gonna say that's the highest form
No,
of
go
love
ahead.
is when you are the righteous, right? Standing up for the weak. I mean, that's one of the greatest archetypes in history, right? Is the chivalrous knight, is the samurai warrior. That's why we mention you guys as spiritual samurais. It's living in the way. It's living to a moral code.
Yes.
And it's something that I love about Western mysticism, because it identifies that there is an evil force, and there is not this idea of rolling over and burying your tummy as a form of the higher mysticism, but in fact, no, having the sword and the shield. And I know Bear and I very much are in tune with this idea of the warrior. And yes, it is the highest form of love, is the as you say, the lion, or that archetype that's out there to protect the weak. And I couldn't agree more. So I guess there is a fine balance, and that's why I love the idea of the chivalry and the Knights of the Round Table and all that comes with that, because for me that's a defined moral natural code, and it is in defiance of, I guess, a lot of the I guess the inversion of spirituality from like the New Age and things like that. And that's why I personally love like Saint Germain and the Ascended Masters and the White Brotherhood and everything, that tradition, the Rosicrucians and all of that, because it really, in the Gnostic tradition, is really grounded in those principles. Go ahead, Bear.
No, you said it all perfect. Pretty much, I was going to say the same thing in so many words. And I think the dangerous thing with the New Age, so-called New Age movement, is that it taught us, I think, that love is a passive thing. And if you look at the physics of love, the resonance of love, it's the ultimate transmuting resonance. So if it is in fact that, then how on earth could something of evil, we'll say, overcome it? And if we are, professing to come from the heart and come from love, and we're letting other folks or circumstances have their way with us, then I think it's the first indicator that we aren't practicing love at all. So, thank you for that. That's a brilliant point you guys are making.
Yeah, Steve and I always say detection, detect, decode, defect, protect. Detect the threat, decode it, understand what it is, eliminate it by defection, okay, and then protect the situation so it doesn't happen again. And this is natural order. It comes from the knowledge of the source, which is Gnosticism, which is shamanism. That's what it is.
Yeah, and I call it the law of protection. And it's absolutely crucial to understand this and go deeper into it also. Because one of the things that we looked out for is the aspect of controlled opposition. And that is absolutely crucial. So, I mean, we all notice, we get this everywhere. Oh, yeah, he's controlled opposition. Oh, he's controlled. Oh, and you are also controlled opposition. And probably we are also, and people get confused, But it's a fundamental layer of the archon infiltration. And that's how the Gnostics also in the past got taken over.
Yeah.
That's why we really have to have a very sharp detection skills, which starts off that law of protection. Because let me tell you, it is far more organized than we can even contemplate in our mind. I know facts about what's happening here in Central Europe, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Controlled opposition, it's massive. And they come from all angles, but they have no chance against us because of the detection skills.
Yep. We've had so much infiltration and we've eliminated just step by step.
We still have some, but we've got them in check.
Yeah. We're giving them the platform to slay themselves, to do it for themselves.
So as I study what you folks are up to, I look at it as a whole alchemical process, taking legal channels and otherwise that are now reaching the collective. So can you tell us from your perspective, for me, if I, look at you guys and the crowds you have out in the street, it looks like the worm is starting to turn. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. And what's at the heart of all of this is probably the most occulted principle that I know of, because I only realized the importance of it through experience, which is the most powerful form of knowledge, is wisdom through experience. And that is the aspect of energy momentum, which drives evolution and drives out the involutionary principle, which is the realm of the archons. To dilute that to its core essence, it's the involutionary principle instead of the evolutionary principle. And the energy momentum is the following: that in the beginning of May, we had the first demonstration in Linz, in the city of Linz, where I was born. That's the third largest city of Austria. There's 250,000 people living there. And there was the first demonstration, and I got to know a guy who was standing like a gypsy, on his bus, who doing his first demonstration, talking about similar things that I talk about. Oh, he had the dictionary of the law with him, and he talked about the definitions of the words. Well, I've had that for 3 years. I look at the definition of the words because I come from within their system to then tell them what the criminal element is for which they're liable for, and tell them what the matrix is. That's what it comes down to. You have to tell those supposed matrix rulers, the archon realm,
about their own system.
about their own system. And that's what I call the system shachmat, the checkmate. And that instead of coming from outside with the high knowledge, you drive right from inside of their command and control structure pyramid, find out that element, which is their Achilles heel, from where they hide from liability to their criminal behavior, and tell them how it is. And yeah, that's sort of like where we're coming from. And for that to be successful, you have to be able to detect the threats. And that is a process, an ongoing process. So we started in the beginning of May, and then we just did it every week. And what is happening there is that you're doing a festival for freedom. We didn't call it a demonstration. It's a festival for freedom with speakers and music and things in between, just people gathering. And it doesn't matter how many people you have. The only thing that matters is that you do it every week, because what you're doing is you are creating a rhythm, and the universe is sound. The creation is sound, or in terms of Tesla, energy, frequency, and vibration. So therefore, you're building a momentum. And then what happens is, how far do you want to go? That's the question. So there's key points that happen in between, because we talk about a source-based notice of liability approach, connected with the energetics of the land, to connect with the land, and get this synergy effect with the forces that govern the land, nature spirits, natural spirits, all those elements, to have a connection with them and work with them. So a key element which came in, so we started in May, and then in September, Errol shows up with Walter. And like system thinking based people, they'd say, oh, we're getting somewhere because we've got this lawyer, Dr. Fulmich, doing this and that, and they're making a court case, and oh, let's just all wait, because we've not had enough from the QAnon phenomenon. Now we've got Dr. Fulmich to observe how he's going to change the world, and I'm going to get it into my post check. The world's changed now because Dr. Fulmich has had a court case. It doesn't work like that, you see? So my ears open up, my eyes are like, okay, what's going on here? When the shamans come in, it's a whole different way of looking at the world. I don't wait for the lawyers, because I know the lawyers are exactly the problem. Because true Satanism is that you make up the law. No, you don't. It's put in place by creation. It's called the natural order. And if you don't like it, get as offended as you like. That is what it is. And we're here to find out what the natural order is, which is the most hidden information on the planet, for a good reason. They want to hide that. So in September, Errol comes in and we start doing ceremonies on specific places on the land, stone circles, strong power places where we did ceremony with intention. And from that, we started to move the energies from Linz, the energy momentum from Linz, we started to move it to Vienna, because I live in Vienna and that energy needed to be transferred. So if you like, you can take this over. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first ceremony did was immediately the day after we met, and it happened naturally at a very, very important stone.
And had you guys known each other before this, or was this all serendipitous?
It's the plan of the source getting us together, and he was already in action, and I was just brought to him from London. I just got on my motorcycle with my friend Walter that he was speaking of earlier, and just rode to Austria. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do and why I was coming, but I surrendered to the source, to my heart, through my heart, and I was guided. I didn't say, what am I going to do for money? how much have I got enough savings to be able to do this trip. I was planning on staying for 3 weeks and going back to London, but I ended up staying, and I constantly kept on feeling something holding me or wanting me to stay in Austria, but I didn't understand why at the time. I knew I had to wait on it and sit on it, so I didn't go back to London. And finally we met, and then everything started happening. And then slowly I started realizing, okay, this is the next step. This is the next step. That's how it happens, you see. And then, as I was saying, we did this ritual on this stone, very strong activation point, and we activated the energies there. Then we went to what they call the heart chakra of Europe, which is Mount Untersberg. And we did ceremonies on Mount Untersberg, and we even slept in a cave there and did ceremonies with the fire in the cave for about a week. And we really popped the bubble. We burst the bubble of the mountain, and the mountain spoke to us and connected with us, even got a healing from the mountain.
Wow.
So now we're recruiting the allies of the land, you see, and we're moving those energies along the grid to the city of Linz, and from the city of Linz, eventually into Vienna. And then,
Wow.
would you like to explain what took place in Vienna?
This is almost Tolkien. You know, it's got like I think of the time forgot which book it is. But when the trees come activated to help and fight the armies of Mordor.
Yep.
It has that ring to it, and it's what I love about this is it's the magic. We had Gordon White on the show last week, and we were talking about the real magic in the world, and you guys are embracing that and using that to really not only provide protection, but to provide the action that's needed to get those energetic forces going. And it's just very empowering and inspirational stuff, because it brings this sense of wonder and imagination back to the world, and in a way that it's like, yes, guys, this stuff's real. This is real stuff. And it's just really cool. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just had to interject that.
Like, for example,
That's
just a
fine.
quick interjection. After sending the notice of peace to the Interior Minister today, we go down the streets, and out for a walk. And the first car I see is 77777. 5 sevens. That's it. I've never seen it before.
Wow.
Magic is real, and there's a reason why they want to tell you that it's not.
Very occulted knowledge, which they don't want anybody to know. And we're speaking about this now, and they're listening in on us right now. We know they are. So we're speaking to them as well. See, we have nothing to hide anymore, because there's nothing they can do about it. Because you see, the way of the source is maverick. You never know its next move. So they don't know what the next move is going to be. They don't know what our next move is going to be. So they have to stage everything around what we do. So basically what I'm saying is we're in charge, not them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for so long they have cut their own tether with the other side of the equation and have gone so exclusively down the left-hand path. They find themselves in a precarious position because they need us to, for our energy to realize their vision for the world. And simultaneously, they know they're dependent on us, but at the same time, I think, it really angers them that, they are dependent on us. And, when you talk about building momentum, I believe the momentum is already there. And of course, rituals and that sort of thing are nothing more than tapping into those larger forces that will never go away. It's impossible. Everything that we think of as the ills of the world are just really petty overlays. And, actual, what people have to understand are actual electronic overlays, grids that can be measured in certain ways. We do that in bodies. We do that in different habitats to neutralize those overlays to allow that original momentum. So I think what we're looking at here is just understanding all we have to do is tap into that and then draft what's already there. And it really doesn't take any effort on our part at that time. It's just like riding a wave, taking off on the wave and have a good time. The other thing I think it's important to understand for all of us is that they really require our consent. And of course, they get our consent in very clandestine ways. And of course, every time we obey, every time we sign a piece of their paper or, participate in any of their institutions, which require numbers that they have issued for us and things, that is their consent. And I think on their side, not only do they understand that there is a certain code to the universe, but maybe even believe that's their get out of karma free card. So maybe if we could talk about that is, going more deeper into explaining your notice of liability process.
Exactly. That drives right to the heart of it. It's always the first notion that comes to my mind when someone asks me, "Oh, where's that template of you for the notice of liability?" And I say, "I'm sorry, I'm taking down my pyramid in my country right now. I can only write it once it's done." You see, because my focus is just so, and that's also what a real Gnostic is. The Gnostics didn't call themselves Gnostics; they were called Gnostikos by the church fathers. "Oh, you know it all better." Well, you better know it better than you do, because you're full of shit, basically. But the Gnostics call themselves the Telestai, those who are aimed. You see, and our reality, our experience is the creation of our intention, of our intentionality. So from that perspective, our intention creates our reality. And they hijack our consent. That's what they do. Here's where this element comes in, where you tell them how it really is, okay? I have never consented to my birth certificate, for example. They claim to, and they claim that by telling you through movies of what's happening, what the world's going to be like, that they've got your consent. It is not true. They haven't got your consent. And that it drives right to the core of the issue, is that we have to tell them what the system is. And you're absolutely right, consent is crucial. That's why one of the biggest black magicians to have ever walked the earth was Edward Bernays. Crucial for people to understand Bernays. Absolutely crucial. And one of his books was Propaganda. When you don't have time to read the book, just read the first page. You got it all there. When you read that first page, there's so many layers of decoding where he just absolutely tells you what they're all about. And another book that's not often mentioned is The Engineering of Consent. They have to engineer different ways how to get your consent. And that drives to the heart of what this control structure is embedded in, which are terms that are the same terms actually. Social engineering, mind control, and Satanism. That is what real Satanism really is. They Hollywoodize it with eyes wide shut, and we're just doing these crazy rituals, wearing masks and doing this and that, and we pray to our god Satan. But it is exactly not, that is a part of it. It's a level of it. But the main aspect of Satanism is mind control and social engineering. So the basis of my notice of liability approach, to keep it absolutely simple, is I remove my consent. I do not consent to any of this. And the whole platform is gone from them. They can't move on from there.
That's beautiful. Well, I was just going to say, how can they have consent when there's no direct meeting of the minds, right? There is no contract with, when we're born, our parents do that, and they, do the whole birth certificate, which is not the live birth note. It's, that's the creating of the straw man. And we've gone over that a lot on this show. And as Bear mentioned in the beginning, that is basically the foundation of their debt-based system, right? That's the slave capital that they use. But there is no meeting of the mind. We you know, most people are, I guess, consenting through ignorance. But is that even possible? That seems like a hacking of reality, a black magic trick that they do. So I guess what you're talking about here too, which is so empowering, is speaking to quote unquote power, speaking your truth. And there is an alchemical interaction going on there. As I mentioned before the show, you were talking about, Steve, how you're putting forth your notice of freedom or whatever. And I said, doesn't that you personally give you a spark of energy, a spark of power just through the act of doing that yourself? And I'd like to go more into the notices of liability, what you've done and the history and success you've had. And one thing that I love that you talk about, what I've heard in previous shows, is when you like had Lena Poo on and stuff like that, is you haven't stuck to a rigid kind of structure with your notices, and that you feel that it's important that each consciousness, each individual writes their own from their own heart in their own way, because that in essence is that alchemical interaction between pen and paper and your mind and your consciousness putting into play as you speak to power, as you initiate your you know, into that portal of freedom for yourself, saying, I do not consent. There is power to that. And actually, through Josh Del Sol and Sayer G, they did a number of really interesting kind of non-consent forms and things during the whole COVID stuff, where you could initiate a non-consent in your state for whether that be a mask mandate or potential vaccination mandate. And it was really simple. It was just like clicking a few things on your phone. And but when I went through that, I felt empowered when I did it. I felt like I was speaking to this quote unquote authority, which we give them that power. And to speak to them, there is an alchemical sort of interaction going on there, if you will. Do you agree? And please go in a little more into what you've been doing with your notice of liability and the successes you've had.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it's all about. What I learned from Errol, for example, is that when you create unique action based on your experience, based on your understanding, and you come to a point where you're like, now I'm going to pull the trigger. What happens in the unseen, and that's what they always want to divert our attention of. Their whole perception is based on us just perceiving the slither of frequency called visible light and get all of our perceptions from that. That's why they control the media. That is the most important tool of this dark force, is the media. But there is a realm of the unknown, of the unseen, that is infinite in comparison to that which we can perceive with our visual capacities. And as soon as you create individual action from your power, and as you beautifully say, speaking your truth to power, you can actually, and that's what I do, I call upon the entire force of the high source as a high commander. That's how I term it. And they all come streaming in, and they're like, oh, someone's getting it. Someone is really getting it and acting from their power, coming from inspiration from other sources, but acting in your power. This is how I see it. And that's, for me, that which is the main tenet of the new paradigm, to really be sovereign.
And see, this is key, because this is an oath you take in the presence of the high source and the highest order of all creations. Okay, you say, I am responsible for this realm. I'm responsible for the human race. I take full responsibility as the commander of the high source to protect and preserve this realm. And you're in command, not the mafia. You're in command. And whoever takes the command is in charge. So when people start realizing who they are and what they are, and they start taking command, then we all step into our roles and we defeat this force.
And this is also the basis, the true basis of authority. Because in the law dictionary that I have here, I don't find a definition for authority. Isn't it interesting? because authority is 100% based on responsibility. The reason why the agenda is failing and failing miserably for them is because they want power without taking responsibility. That is the single reason why they are failing, and the single reason why we, in a state of confidence and based in truth, say, I'm the high commander of this realm because I say so. And they are not in charge anymore. That's how it works. The spoken word, and the source is always listening to our intention and our perception.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's you know, and it's all about basically, as you say, this energetic kind of dominoes falling. So as more people realize this power and more people stand up and voice it, they lose all their power. I think of so in Reunion Summit, which you guys are involved with, which I'm so thankful and happy, and it's going to be an amazing event. We have Mir One, the artist Mir One. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he has amazing art. And one of his pieces is this, it's just so beautiful. It's a Monopoly board with the typical characters on top, playing the game, the Gates, the Soroses, whatever, the puppets, right? They are the puppets being pulled by the archon strings, or however you want to say. And underneath the Monopoly table are bent over just humans that are basically the legs for the table. And all he says is, all you have to do is stand up and it's over. And it's a beautiful visualization because it's literally standing up to power. The board flies out. They lose the game. It's over. And it really is that simple in many ways.
Can I add something? Basically, when you take responsibility as the high commander in the name of the source, what that actually means is you enact it within the physical realm too. So what this means is you never, ever, 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 whatever happens, wear a muzzle wherever you are, in a supermarket, be in a police station, wherever you have to go. In the presence of the military, you never put one on, and you stand up to them, because the source has your back, because you're a high commander. You're protected. That's what we call spiritual protection. When you enact it out, you're protected.
Yeah.
And this
so important. Yeah. That's so important because, Go
ahead, Bear.
I was just going to say, going back to the love principle, if you really are coming from that resonance and you succumb to just somebody in a supermarket that's virtue signaling and then accusing you of not caring about them, you're really not practicing love or doing them a service at all if you succumb to that. So they have to learn that, no, there is a resistance that, of course, is not just resisting their energy, but mirroring their energy back to them so that they have to deal with it and maybe think about their actions. And, consent, we learned a lesson a long time ago with some of our legal processes. We found that if unfortunately you are shackled and put into a cage, they still need your consent to keep you there. And what we found is that if you have the tenacity, to just for 72 hours, and of course there's a very occult, meaning behind 72 hours. But as they strip you and don't feed you and turn the air conditioning on and don't give you anything to lay on, if you can take 72 hours of torture, they will let you out the back door. So some of us found that out a long time ago and proved us that, wow, they really do need our consent. So if you are being processed for being put in a cage, then you did not consent to have your picture taken, to have your prints taken. You did not sign anything. They might force you to, but you're still not, you don't resist it, but you just know, I don't consent. And there's great power in that. Of course, they will do everything within their power to scare the bejesus out of you, to think, make you think that, oh, geez, I really don't have a right to consent at all. And that's, of course, where most people cave when it really gets down to that scary part. But I think what's happening now and what you guys are witnessing through your efforts is that there is definite strength in numbers. And as more and more people are backed into a corner, we are banding together. So it's a lot easier, when we're doing things in groups. And so back to my original question, is the worm turning over there? One thing that I found very promising is that actually people in uniform and people in so-called authority were actually, turning and siding with you folks and joining forces. So is that a real phenomenon now?
That is a very real phenomenon, but they would try to hide that really, really hard because it really, really hurts them. But we are seeing a lot of that. For example, I got arrested on Sunday, where it was a very interesting event. So we've coming back to shifting the energies from Linz to Vienna. And a key date here is the 16th of January. That was the first march where we had responsibility over that march. So what we did is, before we went to that event, we held up our hand and we said we take full responsibility of what happens today. I merge with the realm. My inner being is one with the outer expression of life. And that's real power. And what you see is that nothing goes wrong. You are in command, but you're processing a lot of energies. I'm wiped out for 3-4 days often after these events because there's a lot of energy transformation happening because of that command. And on the 16th, on the first March, we completed our energy ritual in the middle of Vienna, which is the Heldenplatz. It's right where the government buildings are, and it's called the Heldenplatz, and you've got 2 statues there. And me and Errol realized, and it's also what's coming in here is what I realized is that the city of Vienna, the land, is communicating to me. There is a portal there, an energetic portal, which is absolutely crucial.
Important one.
Absolutely crucial one. And Errol can speak more about this. And we activated that portal. What we did is we realized the geometry there and the 2 statues with what is on there? A horse and a warrior on it.
Yeah.
And we did figures of 8 around those 2 figures. We did it 7 times. The first round with figure of 8, the first round, we make a command and we tell all dark forces and expressions of the involutionary principle to leave this space. You have to leave this land and you have to leave this planet eventually. Then comes the flip side. Because there we come to the causal level of things, because you have served your purpose toward evolution as the involutionary principle and toward our awakening, and now you must leave. You see how it is reconciliatory with the dark force also, because they do serve a purpose, even if they are a pain in the ass. But they serve a purpose, a learning lesson. We do that the first time and the 7th time to hermetically seal it. And we did it 3 times in that week. The 3rd time on the 16th of January, where the event was taking place. And before we got to the place at the Heldenplatz, it was snowing and the clouds it was dense clouds and you couldn't see anything. It was just snowing, pure winter. And as we were doing the 3rd round of 8, the sky opens up and the sunshine comes out, and we had a beautiful sunny day that day, didn't we?
Yeah.
Wow.
And can I just add something? As we're doing this, the directions and instructions on how to how to do it is coming directly from the source through us as we're doing it. So we never know the next step. It's the source that's guiding us and doing it through us. We're in full surrender to the force, and we don't know how we're going to do it, but we just do it, and it happens.
Wow.
Carry on.
You know what's interesting, you know, you're using the figure 8, and in the field of biogeometry, we use that quite a bit when we are in a situation and we want to sever our connection with the construct of time, because the construct of time is, of course, one of those things within the matrix that keeps us bound. And it's a very powerful symbol that we use as if, you know, we'll go back and measure, say, in an individual's, you know, life stream where certain things occurred that are keeping them bound in what we think of as present time. And one of the things we do, and it has a real resonance that can be measured, the figure 8, and there's a reason why that's used as the infinity sign. And so, yeah, very powerful what you're doing. And I just throw that out because it would probably be interesting to a lot of people to know that these symbols and rituals actually create a very measurable resonance. It has very powerful effects on the physical side of the equation.
And what you can also observe afterwards, so we had that was the first event, 16th of January. We had 50 to 60,000 people marching there, and the whole matrix was going bonkers. Sirens everywhere. I didn't know what to do. Helicopters flying above us. It was like, let's do that again.
And on that day, did you have much violence or any arrests, or was it pretty peaceful?
Absolutely peaceful. Nothing.
Interesting.
But that was the first event where the one in charge in the police force, he had a massive contribution to it working that way. It was massive, and they took him out after that event.
Yeah.
And the next ones were a little bit more challenging, weren't they, Errol?
In the beginning, there was resistance. Second demonstration.
That was on the 31st of January, 2 weeks after that.
The police formed a wall basically in front of us because they didn't want us to march. So for about 1 hour, 20 minutes, 1.5 hours, we just stood in front of them and stared them down. And knowing that energetically their wall is going to give away eventually anyway. And it did. It eventually gave away, and we just broke through the wall and we just marched. And all they could do was just step aside on the pavement and just watch us. And we just marched wherever we wanted to for hours and hours and hours.
Took over the whole city.
Where
cars were driving. It's just this stream of people taking over, and the cars couldn't drive anymore. Like really crazy stuff, which doesn't normally happen in Austria. It's a peaceful country. Like people think Austrians are really disciplined. Oh, we wouldn't do that. Oh yeah, we will do that if you try and take our freedom. Threat display directly.
Yeah. And this time there was 100,000 people plus this time.
Yeah.
Wow. And of course, total media blackout on that. If I didn't know you guys and a couple other people sharing on our Telegram, we'd have no idea that was even happening.
Exactly.
And then, of course, they show some of the protests in Australia where the police have been brutalizing people. And of course, they telegraph that all over the world, right? So that we see that sort of interaction. But the peaceful mass protests that happen that are effective because there isn't violence and there's a meeting of the minds there, if you will. They don't want to get that out to the world. It is interesting that you're in Austria. There's a fascinating history in that part of the world, and this relates all the way back, really, to, for me, from what I've tracked, all the way back to Atlantis, because for me, you had Atlantis is real, and from my research, and it was part of the more recent one of the civilizations that fell due to essentially the ramping up of the archon power. and we had the those who distributed from that dissipated from the fall, and we had the Aryans that came from there, and those were essentially became the Tartars, the Tartarians, which which come from the Huns and come from all sorts of tribes that were dispersed in that area of Austria, all the way through Russia, through in northern Asia. And so it's a fascinating history in there. And I know the Tartarian civilization has become a focus and a lot in the truth realm, because there's a lot of questioning about history and where we come from, and has there been a lot of that hidden. But it is interesting to see how a lot of that the heritage relates into the Austrian realm with the Austrian-Hungarian Empire and everything that came out of that. Can you guys speak to a little bit of that and the prestige and the kind of history of this area you're in and why it is so important?
Yeah. I think Tartaria had a very strong headquarters in Vienna. Why Vienna? Because just as in the human body, we have meridian ley lines and chi points. The same applies to the grid of the earth as well. Okay. And there are specific key points on the earth which are highly active. We call them portals. They're vortex points. And what this dark cult has done is they've built their structures on these specific points and built their major cities on these points as well. Vienna is a massive one. It's a portal, which is why loads of civilizations and empires have fought battles for Vienna, because they knew that who controls Vienna controls what affairs take place in the rest of Europe. Because what happens in Vienna energetically eventually travels through into the rest of Europe as well, and the rest of the world. Obviously, Vienna is not the only one. There's many. London is a massive one. Washington DC is a massive one. That's why they've got the head of establishment, Capitol Hill in Washington, where basically the USA is controlled from. You see, because it's the biggest portal there. They can harness their energy, invert it to use it for the purpose of control.
And that's probably why in all these places we see this type of archaeology go, like the Washington Monument, and that's like it's a beacon of that energy. Go ahead, Bear.
Right. Exactly.
Now, Mike, you keep stealing my thunder here. I was going to say that exact thing. The obelisk and all those things, those are geometric constructs to take advantage of the normal energies. It's concentrated in those places. So, a lot of people will think that or suggest that, oh, that's evil and satanic. Well, no, it's just science. These people are using it to their own advantage. And now we need to take that back and utilize it for our own purposes. That's all I was going to say.
Right now, there's a battle taking place between the evil forces and the good force for the portals of the earth. That's what's taking place right now. So the dark forces, the evil forces, are losing control over their portals, which is the reason why they're flipping out. They're going crazy. And that's the main reason why we're experiencing all this chaos at the moment. They're trying to, do this here, do that there, vaccinate as many people as they can, just shut humanity down, because they're really, really panicking. But we've already passed that point of no return for them. It's too late for them. That power's already been transferred over to the light side, the bright side of the force.
And first, the way I see it, first you take back that portal, as for example here in Vienna, you take back that portal, and the next thing that happens is you take back the land, the full takeover, without any compromise. We want freedom, and I'll tell you what it is. When the Mafia comes and they ask, what do you guys want? I want you. I want your entire network.
Yes.
I want everything that you possess. everything.
All your technologies, all your underground bases and facilities and operations, all of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're definitely
So-
seeing that. Sorry, Bear, go ahead.
No, you finish. I just had a quick question, so I'll follow you, Mike. Mike and
Yeah.
I are on the identical beam here with the same questions today.
Well, I was just going to say we're seeing the fracturing of everything you're talking about with the controlling paradigm, with how ridiculous what's going on in the United States right now. I mean, look at the regime control right now with someone like Biden. I mean, he's essentially as puppet as you can get, right? It's a total joke. The fact that that is the president of the United States Inc. right now, and the fact that it is more transparent than ever that the whole entire control system is run through the mainstream media, through big pharma. I mean, it's it's just right out there for everyone to see. It's a circus. They call it the clown show. So obviously everything's fracturing, the systems are collapsing all around us. And it's beautiful to see that now it is our time to take what is humanity's, what belongs to us, because they're doing it for us right now. It's becoming so ridiculous. And so yeah, they're trying to crystallize their projected future of this transhuman kind of robotic, anti-human, anti-nature world. But it seems to be failing miserably right now as they're getting so desperate and pushing forth this agenda and making mistakes left and right constantly every day. That's all I was going to say.
How do you know an awakening is taking place? How do you know if it's taking place? With the rollout of the agenda. Because on the visual spectrum and the media that they control, it would always tell you, oh, nothing's going on. They are making mistakes like crazy. And it's the speed of the agenda that shows you the awakening.
Yeah, exactly. So I had a quick question. In our pre-show communications, you alluded to that maybe one of these folks from one of these secret societies, Illuminati, bloodlines, whatever you want to call them, had some communication with you. Is there, if that's inappropriate to share anything about that right now, or is there anything to share that you could speak on?
Sure. It's intuitive knowledge, so I don't have a rubber stamp and collected the document that is what they belong to, but it's an obvious conclusion that we make that they will have to get in touch with us, you see. And I had that feeling that that was such an occasion, but it didn't manifest because it was an attempt to hijack, but the source dealt with it anyway. So
you see, they don't have the face to do it, so they try to indirectly contact us. And I'll give you an example after, but before that, I want to say that they already have their agents among us in the group, but we know who they are. So we're just allowing them to, we're just giving them the platform to slay themselves, basically. We know who they are, we know what they're doing, so they have no power over us. And eventually they will just slay themselves and fall away. And they tried to contact us, was it 2 days ago? The day before yesterday, I think. They hijacked, they hijacked our Facebook, they hijacked our email under a fake account, under another friend's account, which wasn't him at all. It was them. And I directly called them out and said, I know who you are, and I even gave them a name. Okay, and the account was gone. That's how they're playing it at the moment. That's how they're playing it at the moment. But in the end, in the long run, they're not going to have a chance. They're not going to have a chance. They're going to come directly to us. Because let me tell you this, my personal experience, I've had so many attempts on my life. Accidents, tree accidents. They've even poisoned my food. Didn't work. I'm still alive. That's failed. they know they can't do anything to me. They have no choice but to come. And I'm just anticipating that day. How about you, Steve? What do you have to say about that?
With great
Within your
pleasure,
experience.
I'll meet up with them. Great pleasure, because I'm just eager to see what happens, because I've just had enough. I don't want these theatrics anymore. And I just do all of that, and I speak up on a stage every week because I want my peace. That's all I want. I want to be free. I want my peace. I don't have my peace when children are wearing muzzles in schools, when children are being tested at schools, when parents tell children to wear a muzzle. I can't rest. Therefore, I pull the trigger as quickly as I can, and I respect that the source decides the timing.
In our events of the past, when we used to put on very large events with speakers like David Icke and a whole roster of notables like that, the first thing we would do to kick off every gathering was to address the agents in the audience and just very publicly say, you're welcome to. We hope you learned something. We know you're there, and you're as welcome as anybody else. So, and in fact, we were able to identify a lot of those people, even amongst very large crowds. They kind of stick out like a sore thumb. So you're right, they are everywhere. And in a lot of our more confined circles, where we had smaller groups, that we were passing on what we had learned about legal processes and so forth, we also knew that they were there. They might be your fellow students sitting next to you, and then that gave birth to a whole wave of new legal gurus who would, capitalize on some of the things you were discovering, but then, just have a not so subtle twist along the way. So everybody ended up in jail, and they could say, oh, see, that's a bunch of BS. It really doesn't work. So yeah, they don't miss a beat. That's for sure.
Yeah, they're very insidious. I even decoded the Freeman movement here in this country being a massive psyop, and I know exactly where the psyop starts. And I was shocked, but I know exactly why they set it up. And it's disgusting, because I met that individual, and he can't face me anymore. That is absolutely sick, to be working with those spiritual principles and then distorting it. That's why I say I'm very happy to pull the trigger, because I'm not having it, and it's disgusting. But at the same time, I will always be respectful and full diplomacy when engaging with all individuals, you see. But it is important to emphasize how absolutely disgusting it is that when there's a spiritual awakening happening and people trying to look for solutions because they can't stand living in this psychiatric clinic anymore, and they want to make the world a better place, and then you hijack their attention and make them be thrown into a prison cell. It's unbelievable. That's why we have to be very skilled and adamant in detecting a threat like that. And it took me 5 years to find out that Freeman movement was a psyop. And he's still running around. He's got no problem. Oh, I'm free from the system. I'm all free. No, you're not. No, you're not free, because everyone else is absolutely enslaved, and you're not teaching them, and you're not honest. So yeah, good that I have the opportunity to make that point.
Yeah, and one thing we learned along the way, as our paper processes got more and more elaborate and complicated, it became abundantly clear that you could do the same thing, just handwriting a few lines on a paper napkin, and achieve the same aim. And we concluded that it's about the energetic force you put behind those words, not how complicated your paperwork is, or that you have to become a legal genius in some way. And that we found was just another distraction, making that level of process inaccessible to the average person that said, I can't memorize all those books and do all these things. And so it's actually very simple. It's just setting your intentions. And, there's this larger cycle is happening with or without us. There's a much larger agenda in the universe. And I think right now is that time where it's all that's incumbent upon each of us is to decide, which we want to follow, who we want to draft, and again, it's just about drafting what's already there. So it's a large decision-making process for each individual on the planet. And this was even foretold biblically that this would be the time of the great choice that each one of us has.
Absolutely. It's time. It's time to make a choice. We're faced with a question. Human beings, are you good or are you evil? It's free will. It's up to you. If you're good, are you willing to take responsibility? Sorry?
I just said you can't serve two masters.
No. You don't serve any master.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and in doing that, one thing I would love to just have a little bit more insight on, Steve, is your notice of liability success you've had. Could you lay that out a little bit, the process you've gone through, and also give us a little update? What's going on with Austrian government and everything right now?
So what was really interesting is that exactly 2 weeks after I handed in the notice on the 23rd of October, where I invited Age of Truth TV from Denmark to film it and do a press conference afterwards, exactly 2 weeks later, it's in all the newspapers in Austria, the president has fallen, but not in his position. I want to make that clear, not that he's out now, and this drama, like a dramatic scenario. Oh yeah, I got rid of the president. No. It's the zeitgeist. Okay, everywhere in the newspaper was president has fallen. So, how do you think, Errol? What was that a signal of? What? How do you see that?
I mean, basically the headlines was the president's fallen and he's in hospital due to a broken hip bone. And basically, that's code word for the mafia has pulled him in, giving him a good hiding and a threat, and said, listen, you do not speak to these people.
Interesting.
And other than that, the success, is when you continue fulfilling your intention. You keep going until you fulfilled, when the intention meets the outcome. Okay, the outcome is freedom. So I'll keep going until that is the outcome. That is my intention. And when you're successful, when you don't get an answer back, that's when you hit the bullseye. That's what a lot of people misunderstand. Oh, I didn't get a reply. Yeah, do you think a criminal is going to write back when you've shown he's a criminal? No, you don't. Don't get an answer. But it's basically for me, because I understand the nature of this reality to the degree that I understand it. I want to continue understanding it more. That's the beauty of wisdom and learning, which I'm a big fan of. I always learn. I always have an open mind. I always question my own things that are not in alignment with true knowledge. And what I see that it's gathering is I see other people suddenly talk about liability. Like the other day on Sunday, I got arrested. And people there were talking about liability and that people are privately liable, that the police officers are privately liable for how they looked at it. And those were people that I didn't even know. I didn't even know them. And the gathering people and people talking about responsibility, it's all around you then. It's in the collective consciousness. Yeah. And it's the last thing you're going to see straight away, and that's how our brains were programmed by this control system, is you're going to get a quick fix and a quick result. It doesn't work that way. The last thing you're going to experience along this project is the success. That's the last thing you're going to see.
So you just got to keep going.
Exactly. It's the process. Faith. It's important. Trust in the source.
Well, the question is define success. If we're looking at a endpoint place to be, as success, I think we're going to be disappointed. On the other hand, if we understand what's happening, with each of us individually and with the collective, as far as how it's shifting our consciousness, that's the real success there. And, you were saying, well, if the government doesn't respond to you, that means they're disavowing or not acknowledging your information. Well, what they would tell us is if we don't respond to their processes, then, they take that as our consent. So I don't mind at all if I serve a process to them and they don't respond back. I just go, oh, thanks, you agree, because they acquiesce at that point as well.
Which is the reason why we're in charge right now. We literally are in charge. It's just that the rest of the people in Austria, they haven't realized this yet. But our group, we're aware that we're in charge, and they're aware as well, but they're having a hard time coming into terms with it, which is the reason why we have to face them and speak to them and say, look, guys, we know you're afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. Stand behind us. We're protecting you.
It's the light side of being psychic, actually. It's schizophrenia, and being psychotic is like, oh, I'm imagining things and isn't. But when you are anchored in your being, I have to act from that place of sovereignty, because otherwise I don't manifest it into reality. But I do not need pointers outside of me to tell me that it is like it is, because I know it's in the unseen. And a visionary is one who sees in the unseen and pulls it into the scene.
So, where do you guys see this going now as you move forward? In your mind's eye, that you're manifesting as more and more consensus comes through the awakening Austrian population, what would be a beautiful path forward to, essentially bring freedom to this country and have that spread across Europe and then, across the pond and everywhere else?
From the point we're in right now, and the way I see it, the way I understand it also, I am very pointed and I'm very direct in my intention. And I have to speak like that, and I know it to be like that. I know that this crisis is over by the 21st of March, 2021 here in Austria. It is over due to the fact that it is the natural cycle of creation. That's a sine wave. And the beginning of the year is the 21st of March. And I don't let the archontic forces in for another cycle. And therefore, everything is in alignment and prepared for it to be that way. And that's why I have to be absolutely strict. Don't make any compromises. You guys of the dark force are out of this country for real on the 21st of March latest. And what I see is a massive, massive party for freedom of the human family, together with the politicians, together with all the people in the country, because we're not only the protectors of the human family, it is in total, including the politicians. That's what I wrote in this notice of peace to the interior minister. We see it as our responsibility to protect every one of you politicians from the mafia, which goes into a non-human domain, which we are dealing with. Don't worry, you don't have those skills. We have it, and we're going to do it.
And when you look at it, when you look around you here in Vienna and Austria, that's already taken place. I mean, we can literally do anything we're much more less harassed than before. They have no power. It's fading away. I mean, last night we got on the train and there were the mask police, and they came and they said to us, put your muzzle on, this, that. And we stood up to them, obviously, as we always do. And then the train came along and we said, well, our train's here, we're getting on. Okay, so I'll see you later. And they were like, oh, okay, bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
What are they going to do? And we walk into supermarkets and there's less people wearing masks now. Or we get on the train, there's less people wearing masks.
Policemen without masks.
And when we walk into supermarkets, for example, we're beginning to activate people and unlock them, and they're taking their masks off.
Yeah, that's something that I notice up here too, because where we're at is a much more kind of liberated place. I'm not huge on the word liberated because that kind of makes us think that we're slaves already, but it's a very freedom focused place here, and people are just like kind of no nonsense, like this doesn't make any sense. So fortunately, while we're in California, we're not in a type of California most people think, because we're kind of up in our own place. But that is so true, because when I go into market and not wear a mask, I'll bump into someone I know that is wearing a mask, and typically they'll kind of pull it off, go, it's almost like, why am I wearing this thing? So it's important that we are the nodes of awareness to spread to other nodes in this kind of decentralized, right, spreading of knowledge and truth, so that it can go across the planet. It's important for all of you guys listening here to understand your own power, or watching, and to enact it out. And it goes back to that monopoly table vision again, right? It's just like, if we have to stand up and we have to speak our truth to power. And it's, guys, you guys obviously have the skill sets and the knowledge and the wisdom to do that. A lot of people, I'm sure, listening and watching this are going to have the excuse that it's scary. I don't want to get arrested. I don't want to get thrown down on the ground and shackled. I don't want to have, what the thing is, the biggest fear most people have is the fear of being cast out by their peers, being ridiculed. It's the fear of ridicule more than anything, of standing out and being separate from your society, and then having people whispering about you that you're crazy behind your back, right? And so we have to get over that. And I think one way to get over that is by finding communion and community with like-minded people who are on the same path as you guys are doing with your marches, as we're doing with our community on Telegram, what we do with our permaculture meetups and stuff. It's important to find our tribe right now, find people that are on the same level with you, and engage and educate and share truth to others. And hopefully they can start to process this and awake too. So it is a process. From what you guys are saying, to those who are watching this, listening, saying, I can't do that, like that's scary. What is your response to that sort of thinking?
See, the fear of being outcasted by society, the way I see it is, what an honor. Beautiful. Because anyone who's had an impact in the world and made change has always been an outcast. The assassins of Persia, they were outcasts. The Vikings were outcasts. The Celts were outcasts.
Mm-hmm.
They've always been outcasts. Those who change the world, those who make the difference.
I lost all my friends through Corona. It was great.
Yeah.
Got to know new friends, and just face the reality that if you do not follow your heart and be yourself and align your thoughts with your emotions and put that into action, realize the consequence of that choice. Bill Gates is going to choose what you're going to do. Look him in the eyes and ask yourself the questions if you want that. Is that your choice? Look at these people's eyes. They have no power. If you really want another reality, realize that you're going to have to be an outcast, but only for a while. Face that process within yourself. Go out into nature, be on your own. Get to know yourself also. Go out into nature, do crazy things like just fall on the floor in an embryo state and just do that inner child. I don't need to know anything. I only have to feel. I did that the other day. Felt great. Absolutely great. And you're only going to be an outcast for a little while. You're going to draw new people in that are in resonance with your true being, and you don't want to be that false being. It takes all your energy meeting with people who are ignorant. It's an energy parasite. Get out of that.
Be true to yourself. You have to give away everything to gain and receive much, much more.
Yeah. And if you
I know.
go ahead, Bear. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say real quick, if you look to those people who are judging, and I deal with it a bit in my family. Oh, Mike's got such weird views, but then you look to them, and they're muzzled, they're in fear, they're running to get PCR to get tested when they have the sniffles. They're not enjoying the full capacity of this experience in this realm, where I run outside in the morning and go, I'm free, as I'm barefoot in the ground, and like I like people that follow our show know how just happy I am. And Bear, we're like, every day is a treasure and a blessing. And I my heart just breaks for people who are really, as we say all the time, you're imprisoning yourself. You're imprisoning yourself by going with the herd. And so if people listening that say, well, I'm scared to take a mask off and face the consequences of people judging and laughing at me or calling me a danger, well, look at the others flip the coin. Do you want to, where are your papers? Where's your passport to go anywhere? Where's your tattoo? You have to swipe to buy your groceries. Like, that's where it's going. So go hug, like you say, Steven, go out, and if you're feeling challenged with that, go hug a tree, literally in the forest. Get your feet in the dirt, get in touch with the power of this planet and who you are, and just go for it. Because I tell you, man, it feels damn good. It feels good to live in your own truth.
And I just want to add quickly that I go on the stage and I speak in front of the people, and I had to grow into that too. I had 10 years of depression, dear ladies and gentlemen, okay? When you're depressed, it's showing you that you're actually healthy, because this society's sick, okay? And you don't want to be part of it. And we have a saying from our good friend Walter, don't we? I am the light, but darkness coming first. Darkness comes first. Face it, and you experience your reality, your paradise. It's coming for you.
Shadow work, integration. That's the key. You have to face your dark side so you can face it externally.
Absolutely. We're coming up on time here. I could talk to you guys all day long, and there's so much more I wanted to ask you about. So in your panel that's part of the summit coming up for the solstice, do you address the 5G topic? Because I know you're very active on that front as well, and it's probably too late in the discussion to open up that door. But do you see... on your end, in Austria and the rest of Europe, where people are becoming educated on that. And, that's the sort of thing I look at, because of course that's producing a lot of the symptoms, and that they then blame on virus, and it's just, and become an immense part of the power grid or the control grid. And what's worse is that, everybody's addicted to their devices that they use that system for. So is that turning around at all on your end?
Yeah, absolutely. That is also turning around, but there's still a lot of people are not aware of, but there's also a lot of people that are becoming aware of. When it comes to 5G, I again try and simplify it and condense it. It's the smoking gun of exposing the entire system, due to the fact that electromagnetic radiation, and especially 5G, is uninsurable. Even Swiss Re guarantees that 5G is uninsurable, and directly relates it to the liability problem that they have with it. So that's a smoking gun. That's what I focus on, instead of looking at the health effects. So I looked at that myself too. And yeah, we're turning the whole thing round. That's their realm that they want to implement, but we're coming from the natural realm, which is far more powerful.
And of course, it goes hand in hand with the whole vaccine program, because that DNA that's being injected into people, those, every DNA is a little antenna that then is going to resonate with their 5G and those noxious vertical waves that they're pumping into the atmosphere. So, yeah, people need to become aware very quick, because a lot of people that are succumbing, or let's just say welcoming that you know, those two factors are really going to shorten their lifespan. But more detrimental than that, they're shutting off their ability to perceive into those larger bandwidths that are the only way out of here in the first place.
See, the problem they're having with the 5G is that the way the 5G works is they're actually bringing in atmospheric energy from their realm, from the archontic realm into our realm, which is getting smaller and smaller anyway. They're losing space day by day, because the life force energy from the source is coming through all organic bodies, planets and creations and galaxies, and including the Earth. So their realm is getting smaller and smaller. So they're having to use their space to bring it into ours. But what's happening is that's the dark. That's the dark meeting the light and being consumed by the light. So they've got nowhere to go. So eventually 5G is all going to be ineffective anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's interesting how if we just go back to natural law and the way it all is set up here with the divine law and karmic law and everything, cosmic law. I mean, we just ride those waves, right? And it's all good. But it's important that we act. It's important that we live in that in that divine light, or in that kind of fulcrum of understanding. And then it's good. And I think what you mentioned, Steven, about liability is so important. Understanding this, because this gives us immense power, because they can't insure any of this stuff, right? But we have to call them out on it. So on this panel, Bear, that they're in, it's a lot about notices of liability, and it's about status correction, and it's about using these tools to counteract this agenda, because we know it's built on ignorance and the consensus of the conscious forces here, us, to just go along with it out of ignorance. And also what's empowering is it doesn't take a lot, because it's on such shaky ground. It doesn't take a vast majority of human beings on this planet to do this, right, Steven? I mean, it really, in what we've seen in past history too, it's just, it takes that spark of enough of us to do it, to where now that very fragile house of cards will fall.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a key point. Those who get the calling to do it, do it. Okay. And then immerse yourself in that process. Okay. It's a process, and it's a long-term project. Okay. And you'll be learning a lot. You'll be learning everything you need to know by the source to complete that aim that you have, that intention you have.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing, guys. Hey, thanks so much today. This has been a truly inspiring talk. It's gone deep. It's gone everywhere we like it to go. I hope those who are listening or watching this can glean some truth and apply to your life right now. If this is something that challenges you, that's great. Take it in. Go on a walk in nature and maybe listen to it again. And see where it leads you. Test it out, right? We know the universe is pretty quick in responding when you play with these laws. So test it out. Try it out. Try not wearing a mask. Try going up and engaging with others that are in fear with love and honesty and compassion, but also no fear. And stay true to yourself. Don't back down. And see what happens. And as long as you're doing it in a way that's respectful, as you say, Steven, right? That you're doing your duty of care and letting them know where you come from, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And I'm talking about even speaking to authority, like police, but definitely, do the work first and foremost. Educate yourself. Have that foundation. That's important too. And be respectful. Be respectful for where everyone's at, because in the end, I think a lot of these as Mark Passio, to go back to him, talks about the order followers. They're just following orders and trying to do what's best for their limited knowledge. And if we can understand that and treat them in a way that's respectful, but also coming from a place of authenticity and valor, I always have great interactions. And I'm never thrown down on the ground and put in shackles. No, maybe I haven't tested myself enough. Maybe I need to do more. So,
you don't have to experience it. I just had, I was arrested, and the policewoman who had me arrested told the policeman, get your hand off him. He's fine. So that it really helps when you're respectful with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing too, which we talk about, is that protective sphere, that sphere of protection that you can put around yourself. That is real. So it's all about intention. So before you go out in public, if you aren't going to wear a mask and you're going to live in your truth, it's good. This is what I do. I put a sphere of protection around me. I put my intent that I'm going out to not cause anyone harm or cause any dissension or fear, because the last thing we need is any more fear or any more negativity. And that's something, that is the flip side of the mask thing, right? But anyways, that some people say, well, I wear a mask because I don't want to cause any more fear with people. But it's a tough thing, and you do what's best for where you're resonating in your power. But that sphere of protection does work. And I typically travel without any issues. I typically can communicate and go throughout my day, and it's all positivity and it's all good interaction. So that is real. That is the true magic, right?
Yes.
that we can use.
Yes, Mike, but do you know where that sphere of protection comes from? It comes from within yourself when you're only enacting within your truth. And the more you enact within your truth, the stronger and bigger the sphere gets.
Amen. Yeah, it's not externalizing and bringing it from somewhere else. It's your own sphere of protection. Exactly. Yeah. Well, hey guys, thanks so much for spending time with us today. This was truly an amazing chat. We will put all of your links to find you below in the show notes. But if there is a specific website or place that you want to mention right now for people to get more engaged with you, please let us know right now. Where would be the best place for people to go?
So probably our Telegram channel and the community that we have there. You stay informed there, and the rest, we'll share that with you happily.
Very good. Yes, we'll put that in the show notes. And Dr. Bear Paul Lando, any concluding final words for the community or listeners?
No, just thank you. This was one of those very special conversations for me, and I really appreciate what you're doing and just spending time with us today. So let's stay in the loop with each other. I know we're already there anyway, and I'd love to see you over in your neck of the woods someday, and we'd love to have you over in our place. We're I'm sure Mike has told you more about us. We're entirely off grid. We're surrounded by miles and miles of mountain ranges and rivers and wilderness, and we're the only game in town out here. So no mask in our neighborhood, and you're welcome all the time. We have plenty of space for you. So we have a lot of special things going on with people coming in. We're going to be doing a lot of work with different kinds of things we'll be teaching here, just resonant therapies and biodynamic farming. And we put a lot of work into this, and we have a lot of things going on in this one spot. And it's great because we're already getting a lot of good visitations from people like yourself. So I hope we see you out here in the future someday.
Yeah, wonderful. Sounds great.
Yeah,
oh man, I would love to go to Austria and visit that beautiful Vienna and eat the food and magical place. So we will get there. We will be traveling throughout the world again. I know it. And we will be communing together, and it will be happening. And also we can connect right now. Like, no, I'm not talking via even digital, like through time and space is just a part of the mental plane. And as Bear is doing with biogeometry, we can affect each other with our energy right now. So sending you guys all the love from here, and good luck to you with everything you're doing there. And please keep us abreast with updates. Definitely, I will share that with our community. Our Telegram is t.me/Alfa Vedic for those listening. We have an amazing community in there, and we will definitely share the Gnostic Takeover site and the Telegram as well, so you guys can join them, because wonderful content there. So okay, everybody, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, thanks for gathering in the chat. It was lively for sure. We appreciate you, and we will see you next week. We will be at Anarchapulco next week as well, so go to anarchapulco.com for more information there. Thanks, everyone. We love you. Get outside, get your feet in the soil, go plant something, go for a walk. Nature is the best communicator and best healer. Peace.